Danielle.
Thanks, Felicia. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's going to be a really fun class. We have lots of extra time compared to, our usual classes where we're going to be going over a variation of spiral rope stitch. And a lot of you guys, I know you've done this stitch before, you've seen it before. And if you haven't, don't worry, because we're going to go over that too. But it's just something with a little extra step at the end to bring all of those spiral arms into a more locked position so that it just gives it, number one, it gives it a different look, but it can also have a really cool effect if you do the same stitch different ways with different size beads. So we'll talk all about that. We'll talk about adding beads. I think we're going to have lots of extra time to cover questions and, extra ideas. So I thought what I do is start with the materials, and then I'll go through the basics of, the sample, how the original sample was done, and then we'll just go from there. We'll see what we have time for, and we'll jump in. All right, so here on my mat, I've got seed beads in the project. So this one was made with 2 colors of size 8 Czech seed beads. And I did 2 colors so that the core beads contrast and stand out, which is a really fun look. And then I used size 11s as the embellishment / locking in feature. And so how this was done, that's what we're going to go over. And then what I'm hoping we have time for at the end is to show how to do it without adding an extra bead, because it makes the core bead just jump out, because there's nothing, it's the same step performed without. So we'll talk about that. But to get started and to make it really super clear what we're doing, we're going to work with some really bright colors. I'm going to grab 2 colors of size 8s, and I'm going to grab 1 color of size 11, and just getting a gauge here on the camera. I'm feeling like kind of the red and the blue, probably, just because that'll be very pop and it'll stand out. And then we'll just throw in some yellow as our core bead. I think that will be pretty good. So we'll start with, and then I'm going to be using our usual thread, which is the Wildfire. The 0.006 is the size I'm using, and other threads will work, just your basic size D thread. And because we're working with 11s, whenever I'm using 11s, I usually go for my size 12 beading needle. The good news is you don't have to do more than 1 pass through the whole thing, but there's some spots here with the wire guardian reinforcing where we're going to be going through a size 11 probably 3 times, and so that's where your 12s will come in handy. I have a findings pack, and I have wire guardians handy so I can do my ends. Scissors, I've got scissors for cutting thread, and I've got pliers, or sorry, chain nose pliers for flattening the end of my thread so I can get it through my needle, and also for putting jump rings on the wire guardians at the end to add my clasp. So that's everything. So not a ton of materials for this project. It's a pretty what's it called? Not as materialist intense as some of our other ones. So I'm going to start with my core beads. So I'm going to do yellow core beads. Again, these are the size 8 Czech. And I'm going to do just these really cool blue, these pale blue turquoise ones as my arm beads for our step 1. And at the moment, I don't have the 11s out because I don't need them yet. We'll need those at the next step. But let me go ahead and get this, this out here for just a second. So what I'm going to show is cutting a comfortable length of working thread, putting the needle on, and then we're going to start building. It's just a basic spiral rope with size 8 seed beads. So this is something I know a lot of people have seen before, and it's kind of an out there technique that everyone's maybe tried, but we'll go over it so that we make sure everybody's caught up with that. And so in the handout, it says you can cut about 60, 70, a lot of thread. I might cut a little less for this, just so I stay on camera. But I also wanted to mention that you don't have to use, like a ton of working thread and worry about getting knots and things like that. If you want to work with whatever a comfortable length is for you, start with that, because adding thread is really easy, and we're going to cover that. I'm just trying to find my tail here on my Wildfires. I might start with this other one, because I seem to have hidden the tail from myself on that other spool, of course. Where am I here? I don't know if it ever happens to you guys, but I couldn't find my tail. All right, there we go. So I'm just trimming that. And again, this is one of those classes where we have like extra time for questions. So if I'm going too fast or you want me to repeat something or just slow down, just let me know in the chat. And I flattened that end with my chain nose pliers to make it go through the needle much easier. And I'm pulling it down about, maybe 5 inches, 5-7 inches or so. And then just go ahead and fold that over. And we'll work this stitch on a single strand. So as far as how much tail to leave, go ahead and leave enough tail to do a couple trips through a wire guardian. So maybe 10-15 inches. You can probably get away with 10 if you want to just give yourself a little extra. Extra is good because it gives you maneuverability. You don't have to work with a tiny amount of thread. And just real quick, I'm going to close my virtual. Okay. So leaving that length of tail, let's bring these beads down. You want to string 3 size 8 seed beads. And so these are our core beads. And we're going to always have our core bead be yellow, so that stands out. And then you'll want to string 3 contrasting color beads, size 8, again, arm beads. So there's those 3. And remember, this is my tail side. This is the working side coming out. I want to go back through those first 3 core beads. So I'm going to go through all 3 of those. And when you pull tight, you get something that looks like that. And it's just a little stack of 3 with 3 next to each other. And so this is another kind of just, it's more of a tip, but when I'm doing my spiral ropes, it's helpful for me to know what side they're gonna work regardless of whether or not you do this step, but to keep it clear for myself, I flip it. So I made my arm on the right side because I'm right-handed, but I finished it, so I flip it over to the left. And again, this is not a critical step. It's just something I do to keep clear of, which one is done and which one's next. It also makes it easier to see my core beads, which is going to be important for this next part. So from here on out, what we're going to be doing is a repeat of this step. We're going to take 1 size 8 and we're going to add it to our core. So I'm going to go ahead and string that. And when you get going, you'll be able to do this all in just one swoop, but I'm going to do it kind of exaggerated, slow version for a couple of repeats. But so there's the bead I added. I'm bringing it down to sit on top of the first 3. Now I need 3 more arm beads. So I got those. And I always want to go and I always want to hug 3 beads, 3 core beads. So I'm going to count back. Here's the one I just added, right? Here's 1 more and 1 more. So for a total of 3. So I want to circle around those 3. So to do that, I'm going to go through those 3. So skipping that first one at the bottom, we're not going to go through that one. Just go through the last 3 core beads. Go ahead and pull tight. And what you'll get will look like this. And then if you like this, it helps me sometimes to flip it. And when I'm holding the work, when it's not on a mat, I actually kind of hold it over there. So just push it out of the way. Same thing again, we're going to need 1 more core bead and 3 more arm beads. And I'm going to slide all of that down and push that arm over and count back 3 beads, 3 core beads, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to just kind of wiggle my thread in there, wiggle my needle in there. As you create this and keep going, this gets tighter. It's loose right now because my tail still has some give to it. But as you get going, this will get tighter and tighter. You just want to go through those 3. So we're going to do that a bunch of times. So there's my next arm. And once you add a new arm, it really kind of naturally pushes the others two to the left. If you're left-handed, all of this will happen the same way, just happen in reverse and mirror. But it just kind of flips over that way. So same thing again. Let's pick up one more core bead. 3 arms, bring that down. And I'm going to just move those to the left. I'm going to go through back 1, 2, 3. Just go through those 3. And this same process that I'm doing, the same stitch, works for any size bead. You can do this with 11s. You can do it with size 6. If it would be a kind of big chunky one, that'd be cool. Yeah, so whatever you've got, it'll work. You start to get something that looks, you can see that spiral going. It will be loose though, and it'll stay loose the whole time until we do our end step. But this is the traditional spiral arm that you guys have seen probably on lots of different, designers use it. And this is the basic stitch. Add 3 arms and go back through the last 3. And you want to remember you added 1 core bead every time. And that's what makes it spin upward. So there's a new core bead. That down. And if while you're working, you kind of lose track of what's on the left and the right, it's still going to work. Don't worry about that. It'll get sorted out when we do the next step. And you can also help tighten things up by pulling the tail and the working thread. And just get it to be tighter like that too. So here we are, we got a new core bead coming down, 3 new arm beads. And I'm going to turn things around so that my last arm bead is on my left. I'm going to go through 1, 2, 3. So as the ones below start moving around and getting wonky and confusing, just worry about the last one you did. Is if you can, try to stay to the left of it. Another thing you can do is pinch the thread like this and push down and pull with your working thread to tighten things up. Open that one to the left. We'll do a bunch more. Another really fun thing you can do, especially since this can start to get a little boring because it's the same thing and you'll be doing it for a while. If you're doing like a 7-inch bracelet, you'll do this 80 times or more, and depending on your bead size. So you can change colors if you want. Start swapping up new colors into it and make like kind of like a color block look. If it's getting boring, I found that changing colors helps me get more interested in what I'm doing, and it gives me, like racers milestone points. Okay, the mile mark here and the mile mark there helps me keep going to know, I just did those 10. I'm going to switch to the color and do 10 more. So if that's of value to anybody who's like, oh, I do this 80 times. No. So here's 3. I'm going to go. So now I'm going to show you guys my shorthand. If everyone's comfortable with the stitch, I'm going to wait a minute in case anyone's not. So please jump in the chat. If you are all with me, I'm going to just do a shorthand version real quick.
Hey, Danielle, it's Carmi.
Hey.
Sidebar's good so far.
Okay.
I'm watching quite a few people are actually doing it with you.
Oh, yay.
Pat just raised her mug in salute, or she's having a glass of something.
Hi, Pat.
Cindy looks good, but she got called into work.
Oh, no.
So I think I'm thinking we're good. I think we have a lot of established beaders here today. Oh, Pat's already done about 12 inches. So it looks like a huge thing. Oh, about 6 inches.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
How cool is that?
So I'm Sharon looks like a tangle. Something, no,
oh, she's got 2
done. Okay.
2 inches. She's got 2 inches there.
2 inches done. Awesome.
How cool.
Yeah. Cindy's accusing Pat of being an overachiever. So yes, I think the ladies are all good. And yes, a shorthand stitch would be a great idea.
Awesome. Okay. So this way that I've been doing it is it's the same thing, but there's another way you can work it, you know, by I guess what the word is, I'll show you what I've been doing. I've been put on the core bead and I've been sliding it down and then grabbing the other 3 and then counting back 3. And you know, that's totally great. A totally great way to do it. If you want to just take one little step out of there, which is sliding the core bead down, you can do that. And it looks like this. Just pick up one of your core bead and go straight to picking up the 3 arm beads. So now I've got 4 beads on the needle. And in just one swoop, without really worrying about where I'm at, I'm just gonna come over here and go through 2. I'm just gonna go through 2 there. Bring it all the way down, slide it to the left, and then just come up through that last one. Let me do that again. So 1 core bead. And this is done, you know, you're not putting it down, you're holding it the whole time, but you've got your core bead, the 3 arm beads. Just coming over here. Going through just 2. And when you pull it, you'll get the same arm thing going on. And you can kind of just bring it over to the left and then just go through here. This saves you a few seconds, which adds up a lot over that many repeats. So there's one little quick time saver there that might help some folks. It'll help you mostly if you're one of those people that holds your work like I am, where, you know, while you're working on it instead of having it on the mat. I just realized I do that. And when I was doing the illustrations, I almost illustrated it that way. And I thought, no, that's super confusing to do that. But that's kind of what I really do. Is I just go 1, 2, 3. So I got all 4 there. And before I do anything else, just coming up through those 2. I don't even push them down. I don't push them down the strand. Just start going. So a lot quicker that way. It doesn't seem like it's saving that much time, but for some reason, just not having to slide things down the strand, I think is where the real time saver is. So if you like that, go for it, but it's one of those optional things where you don't really have to worry about it. And so what I was thinking is I'll show finishing from here. And then I really do think we're going to have tons of time. What I'm thinking we'll do is we'll start a new one after this and throw beads on it. So let's go from here. Let's go to finish if everyone's okay with that. I'll finish this little segment like it was a whole bracelet, and we'll do all the wire guardians and everything.
Danielle, I agree. I know we're definitely going to start it over again for anyone who is lost, but there are a couple of people who like really have something really loose. So they're anxious to see how you tighten it up.
Yeah, and as you can see, mine here, one of the things I've never loved about this stitch, it hides itself better in an 11-0. For example, if you're working with small beads, this gapping here, and it's really, really profound with the yellow, with the black thread, you can see, you know, it's not a tight thing at all. And it feels messy to me. It doesn't look, it kind of looks a little, and if that's what you're going for, the organic messy look, that's okay too. But here's just one alternative that you can try that might clean it up a little bit and make it tighter, and also hide some of the thread showing that you see here on the core beads. So I'm going to bring up some 11-0. And the wire guardian's optional. You don't have to do that. If you wanted to use one, it's just a little easier to throw your clasp on at the end and not have to. I see something popping up there. Does anyone have? Oh, you want to see the shortcut again? Yeah, I can do that again. Okay, so basically what I've been doing here is I've been holding the work in my hand, and it only matters where my last arm was. I do kind of tend to pinch it, like with my thumb. I'll just kind of hold it like that. I'll grab one of the core beads, and then I'll just go straight to grabbing the arm beads without, see what I was doing before was I'd slide the core bead down and do all that, but I didn't do that here. I just grabbed the core bead and the 3 arm beads, and without even pushing them down at all, I'm just gonna go ahead and go through those last 2. Because remember, you're always gonna be hugging 3 beads, but my 3rd bead's over here and it just hasn't come through yet. So I'm just gonna flip it to the left, and make sure you come back up through that last core bead. I'll do it one more time. So you got 1 core bead, then my 3 arms, and without even pulling them off the needle yet, just through those 2. Huge time saver. Give it a flip. Go up to there. So try it. Try and see if you like that. And was that good, Sharon? Did you she'll stitch shortcut? Yeah, and I will share it again too when we restart. Absolutely. So I'll go ahead and we'll do the finished part for now, and then I will come right back to it because we're going to want to do this again to add some. I have some pretty little mint green beads that we're going to throw on there to kind of give it that look of the, you know, taking it up a notch. So we're definitely going to do that again. But so if you're with me here, ready to put on your, you know, one side of your clasp, what you'd want to do is get your wire guardian ready, get some size 11 seed beads out, get those going, a little pile, and then just pick up 111.0, go through the wire guardian. We're going to go up and around the rainbow and through the other side. And I hold it like this. So my wire guardian's in here. And I'll hold it. Let me try to get that back where I had it. I'll hold it in place while I'm stringing it through. So there's the well right there, but I'm pinching it. It's like in my fingers. And then when you pull, you know it's going to be locked in the well. Because what happens to a lot of us when we're going through the wire guardian is that the thread doesn't stay in the well, and then later, like after you've finished your work, goodness, you'll see it like down here, the thread. So just, you know, double check that it went through the well. And you can see it there, it did. And if you do that pinch thing, it helps. And bring it down so that it sits right above your size 11. And that size 11 it's on top of my core bead. I've gone through my wire guardian. I need 1 more 11. And now I'm going to go down through the arm bead. So this is the last arm bead I did. It's the very last one. And don't force it. You can probably get through all 3, but I just go through whatever I can. And the goal is to get that thing to sit like that. So finish going through that arm. I've got 1 more bead that I didn't go through. And pull tight. Now come back up through those 3 core beads. Just like when we did the original stitch, we're just going to go back right up through those. And it was really easy for me to get through my 11 and through my wire guardian. So I went ahead and proceeded on through those. So there's that. And this will tighten up a lot after this pass. I'm going to go down around this other side. And I'll get through as many core beads as I can. Arm beads. We're going through the arm beads now. Around the rainbow there, through the 11. And the goal is to get through all 3 of those arm beads too, but I went just through there. Okay, so that's pretty secure. You can do it another time to secure it. But there's another opportunity to make a pass through it coming up here. And I just want to show the handout really quick because I know it helps. Someone gave me some feedback that it helps to see it first, what I'm going to do. And I meant to show that before I did it, but that's what we just did. So we went through the core beads and the arm beads to lock in the wire guardian. So that's where we are. And at the moment, our thread's hanging out down here. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make my 3rd pass through the wire guardian, come down, and then I'm going to start adding 11s. So stick with me here. This is where we're doing this one now. So go ahead and come back up through the core beads. Let's make 1 more pass through our wire guardian. And we're going to go over the rainbow, down through those arm beads 1 more time. And that'll be our last trip through there. Let's go down 1 more arm bead because I didn't quite make it through that. And so from here, this is the locking step. Right now our thread is exiting from the bottom of our topmost arm bead there. So that's where we're at. We need 2 more 11s. And don't worry, I can pull this out and show it again. We're also going to repeat it over here, so you get to see it more than once. But I've got these 2 here. And now, so here's my top arm. There's an arm right below it. It's the one right here. And it's far away because it's, you know, it's all loose and wonky. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that arm bead, the one that's the very next one down from the one I'm exiting, and I'm going to lock it in place by going through it. So I'm at the bottom, come up through here. If you can get through all 3, go for it. If not, you know, just kind of baby step it. I only got through 1. But there's those 2 size 11s, and see how they're locking those 2 arms together. So I'm going to keep going so I can get through my next 2 here. So that's where we're at right there. And I'm going to pick up 2 more size 11 beads. And I'm going to go down through that top arm. So you'll have to wiggle yourself in between that connection with the 11 and the wire guardian, but the goal is just to get through that arm. And so really what we've done here is I'm continuing down through there. We've locked those in place. It's got 2 size 11s locking it at the top, each of these arms, and 2 11s locking it at the bottom. So ignoring the wire guardian stuff that's going on over here, just block it. That's really what we've done there. We've connected those, see? We made a little square. It's a 2 sides of 11 and 3 on top and 3 on bottom. So we're gonna just repeat that all the way down our whole bracelet. And every time we do that, it's gonna tighten everything up, lock everything in place, and just make it look really spectacular. Chance to add color. And so the path to get where you need to be is the only thing that's even remotely tricky, but it's, in my opinion, not super tricky. It just involves passing through some beads again. So right now I've locked my first 2. I'm done with those. I want to move on and lock my 3rd. So I just need to get over here. I need to get into the second arm to do that. And right now I'm exiting from the top one, first one. So go ahead and go through your 11s again. Those are the ones we added, you know, at the bottom. And then come up through the side of the, you know, the second arm. Don't go through the 11s though, just go through your 3 size 8 beads there. And now I'm going to just turn it a little bit and get 2 more 11s. And I'm going to go ahead and start locking my next one. So that's this one here. So let's just go, I'm just going to go down through those 3. I've got 2 11s on the needle. And there's what happens there. They sit right on top. And now I'm where I need to be to lock the bottom, right? We're going to lock those. And so if you're thinking, hey, can I do that step without adding the 11s? Yeah, that's how I originally did it. What I found is that the 11s, when I'm working with the size 8 beads, they perfectly size everything so that you can't see the thread. On a size 8 bead, your thread is going to be a lot more noticeable than it would be if you were working with some 11s. So here's my 11 version. I did the same exact thread path, but I did not add the 11s. And so on a size 11 seed bead version, it's not dramatic that there's some thread passing down there. You can see that thread passing at the bottom. It hides itself really nicely. What I found working with the size 8 though was the thread showed a lot more if I didn't add my 11s, but it still worked and it still looked cool. It's just, you can really see the thread. So make a call in if you like that or not, try it and see what jumps out. You'll see more of the core if you don't add the 11. So just something to play with. So let's keep going. I got where I needed to be. I've locked in my first 3. And again, I need to travel so I can get down to the bottom of this one. So just gonna go through those, go down through those 3. Bring it down, and then same thing here. I'm ready to lock my next one in place. And so what I've done here is I purposely put a short amount of thread to work with. So I'm getting short on thread. And I'm going to show you what to do when that happens. Here's two. There's two more 11s. And I'll lock that in place just by going through those 3. And come down. So those lock. And same thing as before. We just need to travel through. And you'll notice that, you know, on every other one, you'll be locking on the top first versus the bottom, not just a function of where we end up when we complete each line, complete each row. So there's those nice and locked. And I could pick up 2 more 11s, find my next arm, bring it over, and then just come down through that. Here's 2 more. Okay. And so let's add some thread if you guys are ready for that. I'm really short here. I'm gonna just leave it and get a new needle. And I'm gonna cut some more thread. Where's that at? Here it is. Okay. This is probably where you will run out to if you cut length similar to mine. If you already ran out on the spiral arm, this process is the same as if you were just working without the sides. The sides don't matter for how to weave in. They're just an extra bead you'd have to go through. But other than that, they don't really change how you would do this. So wherever you run out, got it. Okay, cool. I just flattened my end and threaded it, did all that stuff. I do the same thing kind of that we do in all of our projects where I like to leave my old thread in place. And that's especially important in things where we're taking, you know, turns through the beads that have a kind of a structure to them. So we want to know where we were. And this is a great way to mark your place, just leaving that in place. And anywhere else in the work that you'd like, go ahead and just come in. My only suggestion for how to enter the work would be, because if you remember how we do core, we come down to the core and up to the arm, down. If you want to get up here, you may want to start by going down through the core or up through an arm, whichever you choose. So I'm just gonna choose one of these spots here, just down through the core beads, and leave this little tail hanging here so we can use it as our indicator, so we can tell when it stops moving. So I'm through 2 core beads. Find your arm that corresponds with that point that you exited. So for me, it's this one. Go ahead and go up through those. And then go ahead and find your core spot where you would have otherwise gone through. So this is just following our thread path from before. And I just randomly went down through 4 of them. And it doesn't really matter. So you just choose. Let's do our first test to see if our tail moves. I can still move it if I pull hard enough. See, it's moving. So I'm going to keep doing 1 more turn. Here's another arm. Let's go through it. Let's go down through 2, maybe if I can get through 2. Nah, it makes me go 4. Let's go 5 then. Okay. And now the tail's not doing anything when I pull. So all it took was 3 turns. That usually is the kind of the trick. Just getting those 3 turns going. And so we're just going to want to weave up. And so this part, it takes a while to find your way back, but the less beads you go down, the faster it'll be. So try to only go through 1 when you're ready to weave up. And I probably went down too many. So from here, I need to pass under this arm. That's another thing when you're weaving around in the core beads, just making sure you come up through that corresponding arm bead is helpful. And if you need to, you know, if you're in a different spot from it, just find it. Another thing you can do is you can trim your tail nail once you know that it's good, so you don't get confused by it. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And let's go ahead and trim that there. Okay. And another thing you might be tempted to do, which I think is maybe okay, but you can't just go up through the core bead. The only thing I would caution on is it's going to put you in a different position, but I'm going to experiment with that and see what happens when I do it, just in case anybody else tries that. So normally you'd only be going down to core beads. And what I would have to do is just weave literally through every one to come up. So that for me, that's 2, 3 more. But if you weaved in way down here and you wanted to make it back up, you can use your wire guardian as a place to turn if that's something that appeals to you to do. So let's see how that works. If you've got room to pass through your wire guardian. So that's the only thing about this stitch I feel is at all complicated is when you're weaving in, it does matter what direction you're going. And so I'm going to go over my rainbow here. Through this arm. Another thing you could do is if you've already done your wire guarding is you could just start from the top and then just travel all the way down the core. That would be another way, is to come up through. I just thought of this now, so I wish I thought of it before, but you can come up through the arm, go over the rainbow, come down all the way to the core to get where you need to be, and then weave around there. That's another idea. But yeah, so I'm going to go up through. Actually, I'm going to go down. All I'm doing now is I'm traveling. I'm just trying to get to where my exiting thread is currently hanging out so I can join it and just carry on from where I was. Getting through there. And I'm almost there. Okay, so now we're back. To weave in your old thread, it's the same process. You can just go ahead and bring it up through a bunch of beads. But another thing you can do if you want is you can tie a knot here with your new thread and your old thread. I think that's okay to do. If you wanted to do that, you could. Or you can just bring the, bring it down through a few beads and weave it in, just like you did before, changing direction 3 times. It takes a minute, but it works out pretty good. Go back up through there. So you see all your worries about it being loose. Do this a few times and it's not loose anymore. If anything, it kind of stiffens it up a little bit. So from where I am here, I'm going to go down through. And the other thing is just knowing where you are, kind of the anatomy of the stitch, depending on what core bead you pop out of, just recognizing which arm corresponds to that point. You'll develop an eye for that as you do this, but it's as a beginner, just watch for it, pay attention to where that's happening. I'm going to go ahead and trim that old working thread because I feel like I did 3 turns and it's pretty good. When I'm trimming, I push down with my scissors and I pull up with that tail so that it gives it kind of like a spring action. And it, oh, hey guys, I just cut my working thread. This was the working thread, the new working thread, and I did not cut the old one. Don't do that. Sorry. Okay, shorthand adding thread.
Danielle, I watched you do it and I wasn't able to stop you in time, but Sharon's laughing with glee. So
are you laughing, Sharon? Bloopers. We need to do a bloopers thing. We'll put it together. Yeah.
So you know what, Danielle, this is it's great because you are going to have to do this several times when you make this.
Yes, yeah.
So you've demonstrated slow, but now just do it at your own pace and we'll watch how quickly you weave in thread.
Okay. And so I'm just going to come up through one of those core beads here. It's going to get a lot tighter than it was before. I'm going to try to go a little higher. So all I did there is just coming up through the core beads. and down through an arm. And now I'm just going to start, doing what's called following the thread path and see if my tail still moves. Where is my tail? My tail is over here. And it's still wiggling. But I don't want to weave around anymore. So here's option B. Option B is I've met my old working thread just here. Can knot it. I'll do one more. This is also helpful if you let it get too short, which I swear I would never do, right? But there we are. Okay, so new working thread in place. And now I'm going to start going. And now I do need to go ahead and bring my old working thread through a few beads because you don't want to cut next to your knot. That's not a good idea because your knot will come undone. So let's get up. Okay, so that's my old tail. It's super short. I wish I had my like burner with me, but I don't. So what I'm going to do is this little trick that, in case you guys run into this, use your tennis pliers here. Grab it. Get those scissors in there. Okay, tail from new strand that was added is cut. I'm being super careful. I'm going to take my old working thread, just this one, get a needle on there. And also, if you have one of those like short sharp needles, like a shorter, those can be really handy here for weaving in. It would make it easier to work with short thread. I'm going to come up through these beads. I'm heading in the opposite direction of where I took the other thread. And it came off, but if you're working with short thread and a long needle and it comes off like that, go ahead and put it where you want to go and thread it in place. That can sometimes help. And then pull that down. And that should be okay. Since I knotted, it will hold. But ideally, I think I would have just woven around, but I do think the knot's okay too. So there's both ways you can do it. And now I've got a nice solidly woven in new working strand, finally. So there it is. And just gonna keep going. So all that, and we're back where we were. And we just want to keep locking our arms. And I don't know if any of you are working with the Fireline thread, there's a trick where you can burn it together. You can try that. The Wildfire thread, I think it works for Wildfire too, but I have not tried it with Wildfire. If you wanted to try that, you can. It's a little speedy way of getting through this process. So all I'm doing now is the same thing we were doing before, is I'm locking each arm together with its former by putting 2 11s on top and on the bottom of them. So just like that. There we go. So does anyone find this confusing in any way that I could explain it better? Or is it super clear when I'm doing the locking?
You're okay, Danielle.
All right. Gosh, you guys are good. I thought for sure this was going to take more explanation, but you guys are on it. Well, I'm just going to keep going then so I can show what happens when we get to the other side.
Danielle?
Yeah.
If when we come back for the second round, it'd be do a little slower for Kim.
Oh yeah, I can do that. How are we doing? We're doing pretty good. So I feel like I can show going to the end here. So I kind of feel like it helps to see start to finish, putting on both sides. And you can see how it's forming, like it's starting to look really neat. But those 11s really do hide the core bead a little bit. If anyone would like to see what it looks like without adding the 11, I could do a few, you know, repeats of it like that. But I do think it's pretty clear, like which arm is next. Does anybody find that's confusing in any way? It jumps out at me, but I want to make sure I touch on that in case it doesn't for everyone, because it's just, you know, you're going through the one from before it, right? Just going down. And this is that traveling step to get where. So you can see here's the one I just finished up, this one here. And now I'm gonna try to get through this one, right? They tend to just automatically come up like as I'm going. I don't really even have to search for them. But let's say you had one that wasn't laying, like we weren't careful to push it to the left and it was gonna, you can fix that. I've seen a couple ways to do it. You can bring one of the arms over the other if you've got enough slack in your thread. But I don't tend to run into that issue because of that habit of pushing each one to the left when I'm forming the original spiral. So if you do that, it can help you avoid that issue later.
Danielle?
Uh-huh.
Cindy's probably going to try it, that she doesn't want to show more of the core color.
Yeah, okay, so let's go ahead and show a few. I'll finish this side without adding 11, so you can see what that looks like. And you will definitely see the thread with the 8/0. There's just something about that size difference that. So here's where I would normally start adding 2 more 11/0s, right? I would add 2 11s and I would go down through what is the next arm bead, right? If you don't have the 11s, you just go ahead and go through it. It does that. Another thought I had is you could always add like an 8, for example. But there's how it looks without adding any. And you will see once you've done a lot of it, that this thread here at the bottom becomes very pronounced. You know, remember it gets doubled because you go through and you pass through a couple times. But so let's find my next arm. Oh, yay, I have something I can show you. Okay, so you see how my next arm is actually hidden behind one that's not next. It's over here. I need to get through it, right? But then I've got this thing going on over here. Well, if you're getting towards the bottom, that's going to happen a lot. Flip it around. All I need to do here is flip it around. And then you can see my connection there, right? But if you were in the middle of your work and you found yourself in this situation, it is possible sometimes to lift one over the other, if that makes any sense. So it's like, I need to get through here. It's sometimes possible to do that, but you have to kind of, you'd have to wiggle it like that, right? And then when you do the lock-in step, but ideally you won't have to do that, because really what I want to do is flip it back around that way, right? Which is possible because it's on the bottom for me. So just watch for that. If it happens to you, don't feel bad, because it happens a lot for me. And you just have to, you know, kind of fix it on the fly, or you can always just undo that one section or whatever. And check for it as you go. You know, as you create each one, just check and see. Is the last one still directly next to it?
Danielle?
Uh-huh.
Sharon noticed as we were locking it down and making it tighter, it's getting a little bit shorter. So would you have started it a little bit longer for your bracelet, for your wrist size?
Yeah. So depending on your tension when you made your original, that may be true. Adding the 11s minimizes the amount of, the amount that it shrinks. But for example, when you don't add the extra bead, it really shrinks it a lot more because it kind of bends it. It actually is twisting in there. See how it's kind of like traveling in like an almost, it's doing this. Oh, depth perception's not, it's doing this inside of the, if that makes any sense. So yeah, it is definitely, it's just traveling further. It's increasing its distance that it has to go between here and here because it's doing that. It's more pronounced when you don't add the 11. When you do add the 11s in this design, it doesn't actually shorten it as much. It is a little bit. We're talking about maybe a quarter of an inch or so at the most. And of course, the longer you make it, the more that number is going to go up. But I felt like it wasn't enough to make it dramatically like a problem for fit. But definitely be aware of that when you're creating your original, and give yourself maybe an extra quarter inch or so when you test it, or whatever, if you're using a mandrel or if you're using one of those design boards. Extra can't hurt. So yeah, try that and see. Another thing you can do is when you get to the end. So for example, let's say I didn't do any of that and I got over here and I realized this is too short. I put it on, it's too short. I'm here, I'm ready to finish my design. You can needle up this side or weave in more thread for this side and start creating spiral rope in this direction. Out from here and add some length to it at the end. If you feel like you got caught out by that, or if your tension was super tight and it just got really small, you can add an inch or so using the tail side. If you want me to show that, I can show that. Yeah, jump in the chat.
We'll wait and see if there's time.
Okay, sure, sounds good. So I'm gonna go ahead and come down through. I am at my last spot here. Here's my last loose arm. And I've been skipping adding the 11s so we can see what that looks like. I'm also getting really, the new thread I added is getting short. So I'm going to go this way with it and bring it up. And ideally I wouldn't have let it get that short, but there was that little snafu with how I did my weave in. Or I just went and cut it. But I'm going to use my trick here to I hope this is helpful to someone seeing, when you get yourself into these little binds, you can kind of get out of them a little bit. There we go. Okay. So there's the difference in size and like how it would look. Let me try to make sure I'm in focus. So you can see what adding the 11s looks like and what not adding them looks like. And it's cute, right? You can see the thread, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't mind that.
Hey Danielle, I'm going to ask Cindy, do you like it? Do you like it without the 11 O's? Now that you see it? Yep, she likes it as a design option.
Yeah, I do too. I'm kind of torn about it. It'll make, as Sharon pointed out, it will make your design tighter. So you'll see how this doesn't really curve at all. It's staying pretty straight, but then this down here is really curving. It just tightens it just a little bit. Another thing you could try is just putting one size 8, which might look neat. And if you did it in a different color, like we're doing here, it would almost look like there's another layer traveling in a swirl. I don't know. I've been meaning to try that. So if anyone tries that, let me know, because you would actually find that you could, what I'm envisioning would happen is you'd have an 8 here. Like you'd come up, you'd have an 8, you'd come down. And when you did that all the way around, you'd have the ability to come back up through all those 8s. Like you just keep going, and you could drop an 11 in between each one, and you'd have this another swirl just coming up through here. Complicated, but cute. It would look really cool. So that's something to try if you like that idea. And so here's how to finish it when you get to the other side. You've got this ideally what would be much longer working thread left, which I'm going to have to find my way out of that problem. But take your tail and get it ready for use by flattening the end there. Get a needle on there. And you could also do this with what's left of your working thread, just in the opposite direction. That's fine too. More than one way to do this. So, but I find usually I'm getting pretty short. Even when I don't make a mistake, I'm still getting pretty short. So I usually like to work with my tail for adding my other side. And it's the same thing we did before. We're going to pick up an 11 and we're going to pick up a wire guardian, or if you wanted to just do a loop of seed beads, 6 or 8, maybe seed beads in a loop would also be just fine for this. So I'm coming over, tighten that there. Got another 11. And I'm going to go through the closest, most topmost arm there. And so that's going to sit there, and we'll just tighten it down and make sure it stays in place. And then the only thing left to do after that is weave everything in and trim it. So there's one. What I am going to do though is I'm going to show another knotting shortcut in case anybody ends up like me with short thread there. There's my second pass. Here's my third. The wire guardian will get super tight on this pass. If anyone's struggling with that, number one, you could live with 2 passes. That's totally fine. Or just kind of wiggling it to make sure you're not puncturing thread, because it gets tight because you're actually puncturing the thread as you're going through it, because it's so small, it forces you to do that. So here's my old working thread. It's hanging out here on this other arm, and I can get to it pretty easy because I just went down through this arm. And I'm going to turn and come up through here. And now I've met my old working thread. And because I was bad and I cut it, I'm going to go ahead and just do a little knot. And this is really short, but it is possible. So I'm tying a double knot. It's just a plain old shoelace double knot. Not the gold standard here, but you know, it will be fine. And so I'm going to move my working thread down through a few beads and then trim it. I'm going to go through some arms. And what I think I might do with that tiny tail that I have left on my working thread is I might try to pull it through the core. I'll show you that too. I'm going to come down through here, through a few more. And from where I am here, I'm going to come up and trim. So that was 4 changes of direction. And I'm usually pretty happy with 4. I feel like 4 is good. Which would work fine without the knot. I only knotted because of my short, super short little leftover working thread there. So I want to bring that one into the core. From where I am, I'm at the second arm. So I'm going to come down through here. Exit where I can. Wherever it will let me. Okay. Got that in there. Let's try to get this through the eye of the needle here. Make sure it doesn't get caught on my wire guardian. So it's in there. It's so tiny. There we go. Okay. All right. I feel happy with it. Ideally, I would have actually just, added more thread than that, but it is what it is. So there's our little mini bracelet with 2 different, like versions of the 11-Os going on there.
Well, Danielle, your timing is perfect. So this is the mini version of the project PDF as you illustrated it. And if they follow along and do everything that you showed them, they can make the bracelet that is in front of them. But you have some more tips in them for tips and other add-ons that you're going to include. So because it's 4 o'clock, I'm just going to ask everyone to just take a 2-minute comfort break, stand up or get a glass of water. Danielle, I hope you have a little beverage, and let's just take a 2-minute break so you can reset.
Sounds good. I'm going to find my tail. No, it's on here somewhere.
Danielle?
Yep.
Stacy's in the class today. She's
Oh, hi, Stacy.
dying to know how you added the big crystals.
Big crystals. Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do that next here. I'm going to give up on that wildfire though, because I tangled it. I tangled it really bad and I can't find my tail in there now. I still have this one.
It's a good thing it's not your only spool.
Well, I know that's going to happen. So I always have like 3 here because going live guarantees that. I guarantee that'll happen. So maybe this a little longer this time. I learned my lesson from before. So do we want to change colors or stick with what I've got here with the yellow going?
Only if you're bored with your color. If not, it's really easy to see, Danielle.
Easy to see. Yeah, let's stick with it. Sounds like it's pretty good.
One of the ideas that came up is maybe making your 11 O's the same color as your core bead.
Ah, well, that's good too. See, there's so many cool things you can do there.
Although Pat loves purple.
Oh yeah, well, I love purple too. I think among my favorite colors has got to be this chalk. It's like chalk purple that we've got here. It's like a purple chalk. Yeah, that's what it's called. And I like to combine it with the other purples in the 6-0 and the 6-0 lines. So like these two here, so cute together. I don't know if you guys can see that, but those are the grape and the metallic. Those are just pops of purple. It's like a lavender field.
Danielle, I think you're good to restart.
Am I good? Okay, let me bring lamp over. I feel like it's getting dark. So here's my lamp. A little better. Hope so. Okay, so we're just gonna do the same thing we did at the beginning of class for a few rows, and you'll want to keep track of how many you made. Only because if you want to place them at the same distances from each other, you'll need to know what segment length to shoot for. So here's my first 3 core beads and my 3 arm beads. I've got my 10/15 inch tail over there, and I'm going to come up through my 3 core beads. And I'm going to pull that, tighten that down. And as I was doing before, I'm just keep my arm beads to the left if I can, because it helps me know where I am. And I'm going to pick up my next core bead and my 3 arm beads. And you can do this a couple ways. You can go ahead and bring it down so that you can very clearly see all the core beads and all the arm beads. And then just make sure you come up through the last 3. So these 3. And we're going to do that about 10 times. Because that seems like a pretty good spacing for adding a bead. I did a lot more on the sample that I showed earlier. It is something you just have to play with and see what you like. With 11 O's, you see I did a lot of repeats. That was probably 20 or 21, maybe even 25 repeats that I did between those two. You just have to decide your spacing, what you like. It'll go faster with the 8s than it did with the 11s. So with the 8s here, I'm going to shoot for 10. I'm going to shoot for 10 repeats. There's 2. And here's my shorthand again. So I've got the core bead and my 3 arm beads. And I'm just gonna come up through 2 here. And it's the same thing of just taking the step of sliding the quarter bead out to save a little bit of time. And I just gotta remember to step up through it when I get to this spot here. So it looks like that. 1 quarter bead. Here's the 3 arm beads. And then just up through the last 2. Flipping it to the left in, as I'm holding it, and then just coming up through. So you start to get something that looks like that. Exactly what you want to see. How many do I have? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, it's totally up to you how many you want to do. You can do 4, 5, 10. So here's my core bead, 3 new beads. I've got to find out where I was. Here's my last one's on the left. So just kind of come up through these 2. Flipping it to the left. Coming up through here. So let me just quickly add a few more. Oh, and jumped off. All right, I think that's good. It's probably 1, 4, 5, 6. So it's actually only 7, but maybe we like 7. 7's good. The only reason you want to do a little more is so you can really visualize that spiral. So, but I'm stopping with the 7. Let me grab a bead. And here's just a few. These are some 6mm Czech glass drukes that I have here, and like a really cool mint green. Something that would be easy to find. This is a stash dive thing where you can just like anything in your stash you want to use up. Try it with a gigantic boho bead. How cool would that be? Like you could just do a whole spiral side one of your bracelet, big boho focal center, and then spiral the other side. And that would look really neat, I feel like. So cool things you can try. But here's how to do it. Go ahead and add that bead there. So here's your new bead, right? And now we're at start over after your bead. So pick up 3 core beads and then 3 arm beads, and then bring them down, sitting on top of that bead we added, and come up through the 3 core beads. And so what you're going to notice right away is that you're going to get some loose spot. First thing I always do here is I'll take my thumbnail and I'll hold my core beads. And with my other hand, I'll pull my thread and just pull. So make sure I've got a tight connection there, but it's not going to stay put. But we can make it. So go back through your arm beads. And you only have to do this one time for each bead that you add. So it's not too time consuming, but go through your arm beads. And if you can, just go ahead and get through your big bead. So through the arms, through the big bead, come down through your next 3 core beads. So through the next 3 core beads there. Come up through the arm. This is the very last arm we had before we went through our big bead. Go ahead and come up through the big bead and aim for the core beads above it. Now I was able to get through all those there, so that's handy. And now straight on, just keep building. I'm going to build 6 more rows, and then I'm going to just like finish it so you can see how to get back through here to do your spiral locking. But does anyone have any questions about that little lock there we did to make that tight connection there?
think you're good, Danielle.
Good. Okay.
I sincerely thought that was going to be a lot harder.
No, it's the same thing we did. You remember when we did the globe stitch bracelets for like Valentine's 2021, I think it was?
Yep.
It's the same exact thing. That's just a different, stitch, but we're doing that same process. So there's my new core bead and my new 3 arm beads. And this, there we go, flipping it to the left. And I'm running out of my arm beads. I have to dump a few more of those out. And you're seeing my shorthand here that I just, kind of flip it over and jump through that last core bead. Let's get some more of these. Flipping that one to the left there. Here's new core bead, 3 new arm beads. Through those 2. Flip it through here. 2, 3, that's 4. Here's number 5. And number 6 is here. Last one, number 7. Okay, so I have a little matching segment there. This would be a cool earring too. Put a dangle like a crystal down here and then wire guardian, and you'd have just a really neat look. Here's a new wire guardian. Go through it. I picked up an 11. The reason I'm adding an 11 here is because the wire guardian will sink inside your size 8 seed bead. It'll actually like sink into it. So the 11 stops it from doing that. And oops, I need to go over the rainbow first. So same as we did before, this is that same process where I'm just adding that wire guardian. I've got another 11 on my needle and I'm coming down through the top arm. And so that's nice and locked there. And I'll reinforce it like we did before. I'm only going to reinforce it one time just to save us a couple of seconds there. So there's my second trip down through that one. Okay, and so same as before. Maybe I'll skip adding the 11s just for brevity, but I'm going to go ahead and start locking the spiral to move down here. Or would you guys like me to use the 11s to lock the spiral? What do you think? Either's easy.
I'm just waiting, Danielle, see if anyone comments.
Sure.
A lot of people are stitching along, so they can't stop.
Okay, yeah, so sure. Well, let's go ahead and just do it the way it is.
Sharon wants you to lock it down.
Okay, cool. So let's do, I'm picking up my 2 11s. And from where I am,
wait, half and half, Danielle.
Oh, lock with 1 bead. Do you guys want to try?
Some people would like you to lock it and some people would like no 11-0s.
Oh, okay. So I've got a vote for no 11-0s and a vote for a lock it with 1 bead. Yep. I heard a cool idea earlier, which is match your core bead. Do you guys want to try that?
Sure.
Let's do that. So I've got the 8 and I'm just going to see what it looks like if we try 1 size 8. And I'm experimenting here. So we don't know how good it will look, but let's see. Let's get one on there. Actually, I think that looks really cool. Let's see it. So here's my next one. So normally this would be 2 11s, but instead I'm just subbing 1 8 for 2 11s and following the same steps that we did before. So there's that. Sorry, I went off camera there. And traveling. Oops. And here's another 11. Sorry, another 8. One more 8. And down through the arm. We'll just lock that in place. Another 8. That's going to look really neat. And it also saves you having to, you know, work with a teeny tiny 11 too. So another bonus there.
That's great, Danielle, because you could do the project then with just 8 O's.
Yeah, you could use just 2 seed bead colors and that's all you would need, and it would go so fast. Because one of the things I felt like added a lot of time for me was this step where you have to travel here. Going through those 2 little 11 O's was hard to find. You have to kind of like wiggle around and find it. But if we get time at the end, I don't know if we'll have time, but if we do, I might try that idea of coming back up through. See, all these new beads we're adding are facing it in a new direction. We might actually be able to go through them again. So this is going pretty fast. They're getting locked down. Oops, another travel step here. Here's one.
Kim likes it, but she also likes the variety of the size texture-wise.
Yeah, it just gives you so much potential just to see what you like, and it can be different for, you know, based on, I feel like the bead you're choosing here influences what might look good here. Because if you're doing a really big focal, like say you did one of those like really big boho beads, you could take these what's it called? It's going to give it a chunkier look. I feel like having like a more boho feeling to have the large bead. And there it is. Okay, so now I'm at the last spiral arm. So I went through all of my arms that are sitting above my like bead that's in the center there. And I'm going to go ahead and travel to reach the bottom of that last arm. So that's the very bottom one that touches the bead that we added. And so same as before, all I need to do is go through that bead, get through it, and then travel down through. You can do either, actually. You can go through the core or the arm. Either way doesn't matter. But I want to go through the arm because when we started our spiral rope connections up here, we started it from the bottom of the first arm. So at least this way I'm sticking with the diagram that's drawn for you. So I'm going to do that, but it would work even if you did the other, like through the core beads, up to the arm, whatever, it's going to work. So here we are at the bottom of the arm that's on the other side of our bead that we added. And I'm just going to pick up another single 8 bead and come up through the next arm down. And that looks very cool. I love that adding of the 8 bead. I should really like it. So there's that first one done. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to just really quickly get to the other side. Does anyone want to see finishing again? You can finish it again. Because I know that I botched the last one because my thread was so very short.
Danielle, let's go ahead and show finishing again. I think it's crucial.
Yeah, it's probably it's up there with structural integrity of the design. So worth a repeat, I think. And go down through there. And plus, if I do that, then I can experiment coming back up through my 8s and see what happens. I don't know if that's going to work, but if it does, it can be really cool. I'm excited to see it. Almost there. Just a few more to go. I feel like this is an intuitive thing to do, but I'm curious if everyone else sees that too, like that it just kind of flowed as an idea for me. So up through here. We're almost to the end. I'm glad I only did 7 and 10 would have been a little crazy. Okay, I think this is, yeah, this is the last one. I'm gonna lock it down. It's my last 8 here. Okay. So that could be really fun. I wish this was a bigger bead. I feel like it's too small for what I've got going on here, but at least it gives the idea. And now I'm going to come up through from where I am. I'm on my second to last arm. I need to get to the top of my very last arm. And I'm going to leave my working thread hanging out there for now. I'm just going to leave it there. Well, let's finish this side. Grabbing some chainless pliers. This is my tail. I'm going to flatten my tail and find another needle. Let's get the needle on this one. Oop. I had it and I pinched it and it came right back out. There we go. Okay. Happy with that. That's good there. And I need a wire guardian. So let's grab one more of those. An 11. You'll still need the 11s here, even if you switch to 8s because of that sinking issue I was mentioning. Bring that down, over and around. I need one more 11. And I'm coming out of the core with my tail. So I want to go through the arm. It's the one my working thread's coming out of right at the moment. So there's that. From where I am now, I'm going to travel. And I went through this, the embellished bead that we had here. I don't want to do that for what I'm about to do now, because I'm going to travel back up through the core to get to my wire guardian again. So when you get through that first arm, try not to go through your embellishment bead, just get through those last 3 core beads. And it looks like for me, I'm going to be able to just keep going right through my 11 and my wire guardian. So I'm going to get through those. And then over the top again and through the arm beads. And so, you could do that again, come up the cord, through the wire guardian and down the arm. And then you'd want to weave in. I'm going to go ahead and just jump to weaving in. So for that, it's again, that same thing, following that thread path. I'm not going to knot this time, so you guys can see I've got plenty of thread so I can get around where I need to be. I'm going through the embellishment beads when I weave in. I'm going to go ahead and stitch through those. Just keeping going through arm beads and jumping around. So I've changed direction quite a few times. What I'm going to do now is go through this last arm bead here and just come up through the core in the right bead from, you know, where the arm originally, you know, came from. And for me, that's for this arm, that is this core bead. And keep going if you can. If you can get through a few, go through a few, go through as many as, you know, your needle comfortably will do for you. And then I do tend to trim on a core bead, especially if I haven't done a knot, because in the core, you've already got so many passes going that it really gives the thread something extra just to kind of hang out and hug against. It's less likely to move around. In the arm bead, it's got less stuff going on. So I do tend to trim after having gone through the core one time. So there's a no knot way to do it. And that's pretty much it. You would do the same thing with your working thread, or you could just fling beads everywhere. That's also a win. Hang on a sec here. I made a mess. I made bead soup. Okay, so I would normally weave this in, but we're sitting here with all this extra time and I have a crazy idea. So if you're with me, you could try it. I don't know if it's gonna work. It might just look funky, but so from where I am now, I'm exiting from the top of the last arm bead there. So I'm right below that 11 on my wire guardian. And I'm in exactly the right spot because I want to go through that first embellishment bead that we added, which was that 8 that locked it together. And now I'm just going to start experimenting with what happens if I try to join them. By that, I mean joining all these 8s all the way down. What happens if we do that? So I don't know my counts. I don't know what will work, but I'm going to start with 1 and see how 1 looks. So I'm picking up an 11. This may work with an 8. And I may need to pull it out and try a different look if it just doesn't work out for me, but let's see, here's another one. My thinking is it's gonna look like a candy cane, kind of like, see, this is just gonna travel all the way down. And you guys gave me this idea, so you need to totally take credit for this idea. Whoever said, try the 1 bead. Yeah. That is cool. That is cool looking. I love this. I'm going to be making a big version of this, like a full length version. Where am I? I'm at the bottom. Am I meeting my bead or am I not? Okay, guys, what did I do? Oh, okay. I figured it out. All right. So when you get to the bottom of your spiral there, you're going to run out of room. See here, I'm at the end, but I didn't get to to chase the bottom, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm off camera. So here's what happened. I came out of this one, I went through the 8s and I just started going around and around and around, but look, I've got my bottom open there. So all I need to do is go through the 8 here. The 3 8s that are the part of that last arm. Go through them and then start heading back up. And with or without an 11 here, I don't know. Let's do it. Let's put an 11 here. So there's that one. And you know what I probably should do is go through the bead and complete this journey over here. But just for brevity, I'm going to come back through. Let's keep going. And I think this would work with the, like you could do an 8 in between. It might actually make it curl less. You know, it might make it not tighten up as much. But let's just keep going. We'll see what happens. All right, and I'm at the top. So I come up through those last arm beads. And it looks like it's going to force me to go through my wire guardian just because that's where I'm at. And so what you could do from here And what I might actually do now is just go all down, cut all through the core beads if I can. If it lets me. Yay. I'm gonna need my pliers. I'm off the grid right now, guys. I'm just doing new stuff. All right. There. And from here, I could just start it again and complete that side just like that. I don't know. Do we like it? I don't know. It's neat.
I think it's advanced.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, I feel like it's intuitive. Like it, when you're doing this stitch, you get this far in this thing and it's gonna completely make sense. You're gonna be like, yeah, I see that. I see where it's going. And I almost like it better than what we got going on here. I mean, honestly, because if you take a look at how locked that is and just very clearly going a different direction from the other beads, there's something going on there that I like. So we just created an extra version of the class right there. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's a new name, spiral stitch, or sorry, locked in stitch, something else.
Yeah, it's just got a pass 3 on it, right? We
Yeah.
did pass 1, which is creating the rope. And then we did pass 2, which was adding the lock-in bead. And all this was just pass 3, traveling through those locked beads again and adding a new one around them. And what gave me the idea was the suggestion to use just with that one larger bead, because it gives you a pass that you couldn't otherwise do. We've got lots of time. I can do the other side if anyone didn't quite catch what we did there.
Actually, Danielle, I have a little bit of a suggestion.
Yeah.
If we could, because I want to make sure today, no matter what, everyone leaves and knowing how to make the original bracelet in your PDF. Would you just start over and show exactly the official way you taught it?
Yeah, let's do that.
No shortcuts. And with the 2 11-0s, locking the stitch in place.
Cut. I'm not cutting as long a thread as I normally would if I was doing a full length, but you'd want to cut a comfortable working length, the maximum you can work with without getting knots, right? Because if you know if you're getting a knot is taking a lot longer than just adding thread. So just start with that. I used some pliers. I flattened that end, and I'm going to grab a needle over here. I got another one here. I am working with some 12s in case anyone missed the very beginning. These are size 12 beading needles. So if you're working with those 11-0s, it's a lot easier with the 12. They're a little harder to thread. They go through really nicely when you flatten the ends. And then if you need to help it out at all with the pliers, that's something I do that a lot. And leave a good tail. So leave about 10, 15 inches of a tail. You're gonna want to have that to work with. And then you just want to pick up 3 core beads. So my core beads are going to be yellow for this. I'm leaving that tail I promised I would leave myself, about 10 inches or so. And then pick up 3 arm beads. And I'm working with size 8 Czech right now. So there's 3 yellow core, 3 turquoise blue arms. This is my tail side and this is my working side coming out. You want to come back through all 3 of those beads, going from the tail toward the top there. And so here's what you'll get. You'll get something that looks like that. There's the core beads and there's those little arm beads going on the side. And I have that really helps me keep track of it is I go ahead and I'll flip it to the side so that I know the last one I did is always on the left, which is just a convention. It's not something you have to do, but if you are having any trouble at all with keeping your arms, one after the other going in a spiral around, it helps to do this. It just helps lock it in. So you'll need 1 more core bead and just want to bring that down. So now you'll see that I've got 4 core beads. Let me bring it down in the camera view here. So there's my 4 core beads. And now I just need 3 new arm beads. And count back 3. Count back 1, 2, and 3. Go up. flip it to the left. And what you have here looks like this if you flatten it. It's like a little butterfly where one arm is higher than the other. Should look like that. And then what I've been doing, like every time I add an arm, is and just kind of helping it move over so that there's room for my new one. So here's another one. I'm going to bring that down. And then 3 of my new arm beads. And I'm going to go back through just those last 3. And then turn that. And what you'll start seeing is those little arms will just start, they'll naturally spiral on their own in a loosey kind of way. That also looks very organic and flowy and cool. And I just started shorthanding, sorry. So you want to just bring down your new core bead and 3 new arm beads. And skip back 3. Go through those 3. And then just flip that to the left. I'll do a few more, and then just to make sure I can show all the steps, I'll go ahead and start turning. So here's a new core bead and the 3 arm beads, bring that down. And then we're always hugging 3 core beads. Each arm is always going to be hugging the last 3 core beads. So you know you're golden if you got that going. And then every new arm that I make, just kind of push it out of the way, push it to the side a little bit. Okay, you think that's enough to demo? Is that a good length? I can go a little further, but I think we'll stop here and I'll start doing the next step. So ideally you'd be making this the desired length, maybe plus a little room, because as Sharon pointed out, it does shrink a little bit, but about a 1/4 inch should cover that. And then come up through with an 11 and a wire, sorry, you want to string an 11 and a wire guardian, and then just bring that down, and then come up and over that rainbow and through the other side of your wire guardian. And pull tight, grab another 11, and come down through the first, that's the topmost arm that you've got, the last arm you made. And so you should get something that looks like that. So your wire guardian with those 11s, you know, acting as a buffer there on top of the arm and the core beads there. Come up through those 3 core beads again. Let's make this reinforcement. And on a bracelet, I like to reinforce 3 times because bracelets have that. This is a pressure point where somebody might be pulling when they clasp. So try to get through it 3 times if you can. And if you can't, 2 is okay. 2, especially with Wildfire. Wildfire is so incredibly strong and very thick and without any stretch to it. It doesn't stretch like other threads do. So you can get away with 2 passes. But if you can get 3 through, go ahead, do 3. All right. And once you've done your 3rd pass or 2nd pass through, you'll be exiting from the bottom of what was the last spiral arm you made, the top one. And now we're just going to embellish it all the way down, which also locks it in. So in the handout, what we did originally in that original design was we had the 2 11-0 beads, and we just came up through the spiral arm that's right below it. So the one that's next in line, right? And then 2 more 11s. And then I'm going to go down through those arm beads at the top. And I'm just going to hold that wire guardian while I pull that tight. And so there's the first 2. They're locked together really nicely now. Those are the first 2 arms. I want to get to my 3rd arm so I can lock it to my 2nd. So I do need to travel to get there. So I'm going to go through those 11s and then up through the 2nd arm, and try not to go through the 11s that are already existing above that. I just want to go through just the 3 arm beads there, and your thread should be coming out there. And now I just get 2 more of those size 11s, and then just skip over to that 3rd one down. Sometimes you can get through all 3 beads and sometimes not. I'm usually not able to get through all 3. But there it is. I got through them. I got 2 more size 11 beads. And I'll just come up through there. And those 2 are locked now. Now what I'm doing is traveling to get to the bottom of that last one. And so every time you do this, you're either working from the bottom first or the top first, but it's the same process where we're adding 2 11s, coming up to the next arm. There's 2 11s. And it looks like I jumped over a bead there. I won't go back and fix that now, but it looks like I was not careful, and it looks like I did not actually go through my top bead. You can see that thread hanging out there. So I made a mistake there. If you see that, what I would recommend doing is taking your needle off and pulling the work out back to that point and then fixing it. But yeah, I wasn't being careful and I skipped or jumped there. Here's 2 more 11s. This is my last one. So I'm at the bottom here. And when you get to the bottom, it'll be kind of loose because that tail is not secured. Not yet anyway, but there's the bottom ones, and travel to reach that bottommost arm. Okay. So there's a little mini spiral we made. And that's the whole step. And then from here, what you would do is you would take, and holler at me if you don't want me to show this again, just say we're good. But what we would do is we would take our tail now, and the tail is the one that'll be exiting from your core. So the core beads here, this is the tail. And you would just get a needle onto that. So you'd want to flatten that end. And I'm going to grab a new needle from over here. And thread that. And just repeat what we did before. You'll need some wire guardian for that. Drop that in there. Here we go. So you'll need a new one, a new 11. And you would come up through that, go around the top and around the other side. And tighten that down. 1 more 11. And come down through that top arm. Same thing we did on the other side, just doing it in reverse. So there we go. So that's locked on there. And all you need to do is reinforce it. And so when you reinforce, just avoid going through the embellishment. Just go through the core bead, arm bead. 3 times ideally, twice is probably fine. But just avoiding the embellishment. There's those core beads and get through those. And I was able to get through the 11 and the wire guardian in that pass, which was lucky. Usually doesn't work out that well for me, but and look at that. I got through wire guardian, 11 and the 8s. And there, that was my 3rd pass. And so from here to weave in, all I would do is just start following my thread path around. So I've got embellishment beads to work with here, which are helpful because they can give you just a little extra, attraction, tension to kind of keep that thread locked. And that's pretty much it. You would just keep going through each one. And at some point you'd say, okay, I've changed direction at least 4 or 5 times there. 3 is probably sufficient. I did a lot more than that. And take that last pass. So here's my thread that I'm trying to weave in securely. It's coming out of the top of one of the arms. Find the corresponding core bead that it's supposed to go through and go ahead and just jump through it. Do your trim at the core, giving it somewhere extra to kind of lock to, and then additionally it's it always is less visible from a core bead than from an arm bead. So that's woven in, and then you would need to do the same thing with your working thread that you had from before. And if you were interested in that trick we had from before, what we did is instead of weaving in, we just came out of this arm bead and we started going through the embellishment beads and jumping into the next embellishment bead directly, traveling all the way down. That's what we were, the funky thing we were doing before. That's all it was. Instead of weaving in, we just added a step here, which actually looks really cool with the 11s too. Just wanted to see it. So yeah, and it works. It actually really works with the 11 too. So if you wanted to add a third step, you could take that old working thread and just start coming down through your 11s. I added one 11 in between each of the two. So yeah, something you can play with there just to see if you like it. It looks it has a crisp look to it, I feel like. And here's the original. So in case anyone's new to the whole wire and jump ring thing, all I did here was I opened jump rings using my way of opening jump rings is I like to use these like this is a chain nose plier, but it's called square nose. It's got a square and it holds jump rings really nicely. And the findings pack gives you a lot of choices for what kind of clasp to use. I think I have one more findings pack over here, just jump rings in it. I sorted mine because I have a hard time finding them when I'm in my lives. So I've got a lot of my jump rings over here. But so let me grab, I'm going to grab this one from earlier, the one we did, this one here, and just really quickly show opening a jump ring and throwing on a clasp. And I think we'll have covered it. So jump rings have like an open seam. And when you find that open seam, point it away from you and take your chain nose or square nose pliers. And if you don't have square nose, a lot of people don't have this tool handy. Another thing you can do is take a regular chain nose plier and just hold it like that. And that'll work too. And then you could just take another chain nose plier, for example, and do the same thing on this side. If you have a bent nose, do like that. So, but I always use two, and that opening is lateral. So it's like a lateral motion. Instead of pulling, you don't want to pull your jump ring apart. You just want to do kind of like a side-by-side opening. And so the reason I like to use the square nose is they make it possible for me to work without having my wrist in the awkward position, and I secure more of the metal under it. And often these come in a set, like these little sparkle chain nose. I got these in a set that all came together. And so I just closed my jump ring. I listened for that little click. And so there's one side done. That can be my side. And then if you wanted to add, you could add more jump rings. Let me show you what I did on the sample. You could add more and make a kind of like adjustable chain, which is great for if you're a seller and you don't know what size the wrist you need for all of your customers. You can make it so that you can either, it can come on automatically with an inch of extra chain, or you can add it on the spot, like at a booth. Somebody says, hey, do you have an extender chain or something? You put a charm at the end for weight, because the weight of having a charm helps you clasp it because it pulls the chain down, and it just helps with getting things on. I feel like it gives it a little something. On the other side, you'd want to put a lobster claw or whatever kind of clasp you're using. The findings pack come with these little split rings, which are also kind of neat. It's like, I'm not sure what to call those, but yeah, you could automatically just connect that directly to your wire guardian. I think they are open. But yeah, so these little things that come in the findings packs are open. And you can throw them right on your wire guardian. So lots of options there, or just a regular jump ring to a lobster claw would also be great. You could do a toggle. Magnetic clasp would be fun. That would be a really cool addition to this design. And if you really want to get crazy and you have, I saw at Michael's, they have all these like brightly colored tassels, and I get them in some of my other like bead mix kits and stuff, but you can throw a crazy tassel on it. Like just go nuts and just make it really, really embellished.
Danielle, that one looks so pretty.
I love this one. I was having a creative day when I put that one together.
I can tell you, you can just take a deep breath now.
Okay.
So you managed to get through the class on time, And you're already getting a few people commenting what a wonderful class it was. I'm
Thank
just
you.
wondering if anyone feels like turning their camera on and showing Danielle your progress to date. That this is her only chance to see you because she's been looking down the whole time.
Oh yeah, I just switched to my gallery view. Oh, I see Valerie's got hers done. She's got her rope going. Oh, Sharon, the yellow. That is so pretty. Oh, cool. Oh, I see Amanda's. That's awesome. Oh, and Kim, I see yours. That one's so cool.
Wow.
Karen, I
Wow.
see yours. And Paula, I see yours too. Oh, wow, you've got the turquoise popping in there. That's beautiful. That's really cool. And I see yours, Marguerite. You're holding it up. Oh, that's so
Marguerite,
cool.
I hope I got your question answered, Marguerite. When you asked it, I thought you were talking about the 11 O's, so thank you.
Yes, any extra questions about the class today or suggestions for future ones? We're always ears for that.
Felicia just posted the next class.
Oh, thank you, Felicia.
And I don't know, Danielle, if you have anything you want to show them that's on desktop for you.
I do, yeah. So well, we've got, of course, the Rosy Rope Bracelet, which is our next premium class. That's a herringbone stitch that uses some size 11s and size 6s in it. Someone had asked, it was a while ago now, but for John Bead, we had posted this really cool dragon necklace with like pearls in it. They were big pearls and they were embedded with some smaller beads. And so in herringbone, you know how in a herringbone stitch, you have to have beads the same size for it to work. Well, there's a way you can actually make different size beads work together. And so that premium class is the Rosy Rose bracelet that Felicia has shared in the chat. And that's the next one, that's in February. But we also have a Q&A. And it's one of the free classes. So it's going to be embellishing for packaging and gifting. So it's all about presentation of your beaded work. And it's going to be a lot of paper craft with beads. So if you're interested in that, that's our first class coming back in February. And then the rest of February is all square stitch. It's going to start with a free class. That's some pendant earrings that are shaped like kind of like a triangle. And we're going to square stitch those. And then the premium class, the last one in February, it's kind of a cool like deep dive into where you can take square stitch. And I have like 4 or 5 different kind of projects that can become many different things that I was going to share. So it's going to be a real freestyle, more technique focused class. And that's February. So I just want to wish you guys a great weekend and say thank you for being here for class today. And I'll see you next time.